If you missed last week's episode, then you missed Juan and I unboxing the new second-generation Threadripper CPU from AMD. It was just unveiled to the public last week, but it wasn't until this week that the embargo lifted on benchmarks and real hard numbers for this new processor, and the early results have been very impressive. So here today to talk to us about AMD Threadripper and the high-end CPU wars, we have AMD's James Pryor. Welcome, James.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us. So to kick things off, can you just tell us what do you do at AMD? What's your job title?
For sure. So I have probably a pretty cool title. I'm a product manager for the client enthusiast team. So
nice.
I get to build the really cool stuff that we've seen in the market today, Ryzen, Threadripper, that kind of stuff. I do a little bit of biz dev, a little bit of spokesperson duty, showing up at places like this. Thank you so much for having me. And also working on product definition, product strategy. So a very broad role.
And
awesome.
Like enthusiast is in the name,
right?
So
yes.
you're enthusiastic about getting to play with these toys.
Yes, enthusiastic about it, building enthusiast products like Threadripper.
Nice.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of second-gen Threadripper, can you talk a little bit about how we got here? What should people know about the original Threadripper, and specifically who came up with that really cool name?
Yeah, for sure. Now, so Threadripper was a skunkworks project. It wasn't originally on our roadmap. Actually, me and a couple of other guys put together a concept. We saw the great technology that was coming and figured out a way to say, you know, we've got this beautiful market opportunity, this beautiful product we could do. Let's just go do it. So we worked on it in the evenings, weekends, spare time, clandestine phone calls when we were supposed to be working on other things. And fortunately, because our boss, Jim Anderson, is a huge CPU enthusiast fan as well, he loved it and he greenlit it. And the name came from when we were doing the ideation and the thinking around Ryzen. We're thinking, you know, what are we going to call Ryzen? We had a whole bunch of names. We've got this world-class agency we were working with, giving us some suggestions, and Threadripper was in there. And Jim said, Threadripper, I know exactly where to use that. This is our big guy. This is our monster product. So we're going to use that for that. That was boom. That was it right there and then. That's how that moment came to be. So for first gen, you remember, it seems like so long ago, but it was actually just a year, 1 year ago, transforming HEDT, high performance for enthusiasts, whatever else. And, you know, 16 cores, people were telling us, what are we going to do with 16 cores? Reddit was like, this is stupid. We don't, 16 cores, no one needs to.
Well, it did seem to kind of take a good chunk of, especially the enthusiast PC builder base, not by surprise, but it was a little unexpected to see that coming out of AMD's keyboard.
Totally. I mean, the market was used to this incremental. You spent, you know, you got a 8 core for $1,000, then you got 2 more cores for another $800. It was very steep ramp on your performance there, and we just blew that up. The Ryzen effect, right? We did it at Ryzen 3, 5, and 7. We did it at Threadripper, and we did it on purpose because we're redefining the market. We're defining what we think is the right level of multi-thread performance for the future. We led with 64-bit computing. We led with low-level APIs, with DirectX 12, Vulkan.
And early to the market for things like multi-core computing.
Exactly. Like early to the market with that. So it's in our history, it's in our heritage, and it's how we're going to attack the marketplace and deliver value. So we're going to be incredibly competitive in gaming, in streaming, in multi-threaded applications. We're going to dominate. Now you've got the world's fastest desktop processor. Unquestionably, irrevocably, you're not going to beat this year.
So what sets Threadripper apart from the main Ryzen line?
Really, there's two things. Number one is this massive multi-threaded capability. And number two is the platform. It's really designed for enthusiasts by enthusiasts. So we put all the PCIe lanes in there, 64 PCIe lanes, all the cores, it's all unlocked. There's no natural defeaturing, right? So we don't say, well, the top guy, you get more lanes than the bottom guy. So you've got to figure out which parts are dark on the motherboard, and it's complicated. Maybe you need to put a sticker. None of that, right? Everybody gets the same amount. You're just buying up for more performance. Cool. Simple, easy, clear. You can see how if you're looking for a price point, you can build performance. If you're looking for the best, you can get that too. So it came from that genesis of we want it to be simple and easy, but it's going to be something that people who are gamers, enthusiasts, overclockers, tweakers, tuners, performance enthusiasts can get excited about. And say, you know, this scales to everything I want. It's more than I want today, but I can see myself in a year or maybe 2 hitting the limits, and I want to be able to buy today with that future proofing in mind.
Now, because you were saying the initial response to the first Threadripper was a bit quizzical or a bit skeptical. It seems to have succeeded enough for AMD to be expanding that product line. Now into the second gen, what's available, you know, to launch, and then how will this line expand?
For sure.
Over this year?
Well, if I think back to how we created this product, we always planned on 32 cores. but we needed to wait for the technology to cap up to our ideas and our vision. So first gen we did 16 cores, 12 cores, 8 cores. That was our X series of products. And we replaced that then with 2 different market segments now. We came back and replaced the X series. That's coming out at the end of the month with our 16 core 2950X. And that will be on the 31st. But right now, today, this week, we launched the 2990WX. And WX is our very clear signal to the market. We're looking at you, workstation buyers. We're looking at you guys that are blending and rendering and photogrammetry, and you're building stuff in Maya. You know what Arnold is. You understand the concept of batching 200 videos through Handbrake and then still needing to be able to use your PC
while it's doing
for design and modeling and everything else. You're a massively mega tasking guy. If that's you, then you know you already want this. This is your product. You know, if you're sitting out there going, Fortnite, 32 cores. No. Stay, Ryzen 7, Ryzen 5, those are your products for you. We build a product for everyone, but not every product is for everyone.
Sure.
So we segment based on pricing, based on our marketing, based on our performance. So that WX is really coming out strong and hard to take over the kind of the guys that are DIYers that love cores and threads for the sake of it, but really focused on professionals. The guys that are buying from a local boutique builder, maybe 1 or 3 or 5 PCs, because there's just a group of them that work together, but they do world-class work. They do movie quality visual effects. They do the highest quality render outs. They worry about things like subsurface light scattering on 10,000 different light sources. That's a conversation they have every day. If that's you, WX is your CPU. If that's not you, maybe look a little bit low down the stack, the X series, because that balance of gaming, being able to stream, being able to have other things and background apps going on. If you're thinking about 3 monitors, high resolution gaming, the best Twitch stream experience that you can get, plus the ability to manage that chat and everything else all in one box, that's a Threadripper X processor right there.
We had a few questions from our audience about some of those things. It was our assertion. I mean, like we were taking a hypothesis on that if it was just the pure gaming box, that maybe Threadripper probably wasn't the right fit for that kind of an individual. But
you're going to get a great gaming experience out of it, but if that's all you're going to do is game, you're probably overbuying a little bit. You should come down in price segment, save yourself some money, put it into your Steam library or whatever else, save it for the games. Save your money for your games, go for the Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 7, and those are going to deliver the same great gaming experience you see from the competitor products, but still have that multi-thread advantage. So if you're more casual, occasionally you might think about in the future dabbling in streaming, or right now you're just worried about, I need to be able to do my homework, I need to be able to do my finances, I want to get my photos for grandma ready to put them on OneDrive so she can screenshot them, whatever it is, right? Then that's the Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 buyer. The X series in Threadripper, you already know that you're going to sit there and recode movies, and you're going to transcode and do an export out of Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. That you do massive amounts of throughput and bandwidth and those kind of things.
So confirmed, the W is for workstation?
Absolutely, 100%. Stamps right here.
You got it.
Woo!
Nailed it.
Okay, and the second gen Threadripper, the new CPU works with existing AMD motherboards, correct?
That's correct. We built in a lot of headroom for our platform definition so that we could scale into the 32 cores. So all of the current motherboards out there, X399, work with the 32 core out of the box. You need a BIOS update. Fortunately, all these motherboards have really cool USB updating technology. So you just put a specially named file into the port, mash a button, and it updates.
Nice.
Cool.
It couldn't be easier. It's very cool technology, and they've all done that. Now, if you're looking at overclocking, you might want to look at a couple of the newer boards that are out there, like the MSI MEG Creation or the Gigabyte Aorus Extreme. Those things have massive amounts of VRMs, so you can really get the power into the CPU, get the super overclocks. That's what you're going to need if you're a liquid nitrogen overclocker and you're like, I want the 32-core world record, and you want this guy, those are the boards to go after.
I don't want
So is that you guys? You play around with the liquid? No?
Oh, yeah,
No,
totally.
no.
Every day.
No. I can't even joke.
Nope. We
I'm not
don't
that
play
cool.
we don't play in that playground.
No. So we've been talking a lot about cores and threads, the conversation around Threadripper. Can you break that down for us a little? Like the difference between a core, how you separate out work threads in there, and why would this matter? Why are we taking this approach with Threadripper?
For sure. So we've come from this era of single core, one piece of silicon to do the processing, and we've been trying to scale out sideways because the vertical scaling, which is frequency and just throughput on that core, just went away a long time ago, decades ago. So multi-core has always been a way. And then Simultaneous multi-threading, SMT for short, the threading is just a technique so that you can schedule in the hardware 2 sets of instructions to go through, because one instruction may not process in one clock tick. It may take multiple clock ticks, and it may be waiting on something else to happen in memory or a fetch or something, and there's that big long wait or delay, and then the CPU's just sitting there going, okay, what do I do? Or you've got more instructions lined up and ready to go. So it context switches between different instructions, manipulating lots of data. And that's one of the things we put into Threadripper and Ryzen was not only SMT, but also an incredible neural net in the front end. It's true AI in the front end of our CPU that's understanding the workflow that's coming, looking at the instructions, and then saying, oh, okay, here's where I can schedule, here's where I can make sure the data is ready to reduce that wait from memory access times.
Right. And
we have a smart prefetch cache. You've got 80 megabytes, right? You were talking about needing 4 megabytes for Doom. You've got 80 megabytes.
4 megabytes of RAM, let alone prefetch.
80 megabytes of cache in this guy right here, and it's specifically designed to bring in the data for the instructions as fast as possible to make it sure you get the most amount of throughput on those cores. So that really helps you with massively multi-threaded applications. Now, gaming tends to be very single-thread because it's all about a race to do the next frame. You're talking in 13 or 10 milliseconds to get all your processing done, and you've got to respond to a controller input, netcode update. But video encoding, now you're talking about this big, huge frame, and then they're changing every 24 times a second, and there's differences in there. You can break that up into parallel workloads, scale it across cores. And then the higher quality you're looking at for your encoding, the more operations you're trying to do, like throwing a warp stabilizer on there to get rid of the shaky cam, that's going to benefit with more cores and threads, and that's why you want a Threadripper for your content creation.
So AMD really is looking at this for the set of people who are going to be into video editing apps, Adobe Premiere, AutoCAD, Handbrake, stuff like that.
Handbrake, yeah.
What was AMD's relationship with some of those? I have to imagine you had conversations with people at Adobe about what to do with this, because we don't want to be too far out of that software hardware pendulum swing. Right? Like it seems like we get a couple generations ahead in one area, then our hardware struggles to really do like the 4K video, 8K video, 360 video.
Yes.
Then the hardware screams forward, and then we're kind of waiting on, is the software really taking advantage of all of that? What was that relationship like with some of these developers?
Yeah,
like, I'm sure the response has been positive.
Oh yeah.
Are they really looking at how can they extract all of Threadripper to make Premiere, AutoCAD, Handbrake more functional?
Definitely, absolutely. We've sampled thousands of PCs to developers with Ryzen and Ryzen Threadripper inside of them. They're all looking to update to take advantage of the new architecture, the Zen core, the new memory layouts that we offer, the benefits of our type of technology, the SMT that we offer, the smart prefetch cache. It takes time, especially when you got something like Adobe. It's a massively popular product, and users of massively popular products hate to be beta testers. So you don't want to push something on them, right? And then and then Adobe are also looking at how many people they've got asking them for it. So we definitely taking the build it and they shall come approach. We're going to redefine the market. We're going to drive the processor sales, the awareness, the mind share around multi-threading, which is already happening. Our competitors doing the same thing. They're going the same way. So it's all of us pushing in the same direction. So the updates are going to happen. They will happen over time. There are different other applications. You can try DaVinci Resolve, already has beautiful scaling. Premiere Pro, if you look at, it depends on your workload too, right? If you're taking a 1080p video and trying to put it to 720p for your phone, you spend more time as an application trying to schedule that and break that up into chunks than you do actually processing the chunks. So you end up running out of time. It's called Amdahl's law. But if you go to 4K video or 8K video, right, content that's broadcast quality, then you start to see the massive effect that 32 cores has, because now you're putting the hardware where the workload matches up. And that's why we're talking about this for workstation professionals, because they're buying, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 PCs, which just seems insane. But their application license is multiples of that, and their jobs that they're working on are multiples of that. So it's really a very small cost in comparison, and what they care about is that day, that moment, time to completion, which is fastest, and it's Ryzen Threadripper.
And literally every single second is costing them.
It's money.
It's absolutely, it's it gives them more time to do more things, right? I had the opportunity to go to Italy recently and see Michelangelo's David. It's a beautiful statue, massive. I had no idea that it was 4 times life size. But you can walk into this museum for 10 euros and see the chunks of marble and granite, whatever else that he started working on other versions and stuff, and they're like a third finished or half finished. And I just had this epiphany. I'm like, oh, well, of course he made more than one. Why would he just do one concept?
No, this one was perfect.
Just one thing in his head. So, like the digital Michelangelos today are using multiple models. They're making multiple approaches. When you go to a creative agency, they don't give you one concept. They give you a dozen, and you pick from that and refine. And each time you give them more processing power, they give you better quality results. They give it to you faster. And that's the change you're going to see when you have Ryzen Threadripper as part of your workflow.
I like that analogy. That's super cool. So as the senior product manager, you're probably the best person to ask this question. Why is the new Threadripper so big? Like physically, why is it so big?
We were commenting on my palm.
Yes, it's a massive chip. It weighs about as much as an iPhone 5, which is a fantastic thing. It led to our tagline of "Create with heavy metal" because it's just weighty. Yeah. So the reason why it came about is our design process. We are very modular. So inside of every Threadripper is top 5% of our Ryzen product. Okay. So every Ryzen is born hoping to be a Threadripper. 5% graduate. That's all you get.
Okay.
So that's the top bin. If you're an overclocker, you should be thinking, hey, man, I'm going to get better clocking results. Yes, you will. This is where you'll find the best bin CPUs. Because there's the meme on Reddit of we glued them together. Yep, Infinity Fabric glue all over the interposer. Drop 2 chips in there. Call it the X series. That's our 12 and our 16 core. We put 4 chips in there for our 32 core. So you've got 4 Ryzens working together in synchronously, and they're just giving the full performance. Tons of bandwidth between the chips. We've got each chip talks to each other at a 50 gigabit per second link. So you've got an aggregate of 150 gigabytes per second of data moving around inside this monstrous chip. Tons of performance, tons of power, and it needed a box to commensurate that with it, right? We heard a lot of feedback from our partners that they're like, I don't want, if I'm spending this kind of money, I don't want something.
It's got to be an experience
that looks the same as your $50 product. Yeah, so I want something that's an experience that redefines what I should be buying. And it was fantastic when we launched the first gen Threadripper, beautiful box. We were sending these to our system builder partners, and they were calling us and saying, hey, can you change my order from just the bare CPU to the product box ones? Why?
I want to put that on a shelf, right?
Well, the customers were calling them and saying, I want a Threadripper PC, but make sure you send me the box it came in because I want that for my shelf.
Yep.
This is, that's beautiful.
I was seeing so many YouTube videos with those, just sort of casually in the
casually in the background, sitting off to the side.
It's nice packaging.
Exactly. I don't know. I haven't tried it myself, but I kind of feel like you could replace the chip itself with a 5x7 of your family. I don't know if it's a frame for your photos now. I'm just saying. I don't know.
If I can offer any suggestions, I feel like the box has a disturbing lack of RGB. So like if my chair is going to match my keyboard, I kind of feel like my display Threadripper box.
We looked long and hard at RGB for the box, and it's that pesky shipping regulation of batteries going across the globe.
I'm sure AMD can find a solution.
It was very, very close, but we'll figure it out. One of the cool things we did with this box is you can see right through it, and it's got these orange pieces in it. When you hold it up to any kind of ambient light, it kind of glows by itself.
That's cool.
So we tried to build a little bit of light diffusion into there.
So I'll do an orange build.
Right, all that stuff.
Yeah, practical effects RGB, So maybe this is a bizarre question, but we have to ask. So then what are the chances that the next generation of Threadripper CPUs are going to be even bigger? Like, are we approaching a future where we get something the size of like a Pop-Tart?
Yeah, we're kind of looking at the next level of concept now. We were thinking more 3D, so rather than a single Pop-Tart, the 48-pack box, going for bigger size like that. No, we're going to try
like a cube.
The hypercube process is coming next. It's going to glow. It's by itself. I don't know. We're going to try and keep compatibility. We're going to try and keep scalability because it's important for this market. People want that future-proofness. They want that consistency. So I think it's plenty big enough until someone else comes along and takes the crown and says, no, my CPU is bigger than yours. Then I think we'll leave it alone.
Okay.
I think that's perfectly fine. So the embargo for benchmarks. Because we had a little chat before we jumped into the show, just talking numbers. And sometimes there's some controversy when we get into numbers. So we saw a ton of videos and articles from like PC World, Gizmodo. I'm sure you've been keeping abreast, watching what people have been saying. What can you tell us in general about the sort of the public numbers that you're seeing off of the systems that people are testing Threadripper in, and how that corresponds, because I'm sure AMD had their own set of goals that they were trying to achieve with Threadripper.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, we're very pleased with what people are saying and seeing with the Threadripper process. It lines up to our expectations. I love how the conversation is moving away from let's see one application that uses 32 cores to let's look at a workflow. Let's look at someone who's really using the whole PC and how does 32 cores change their life. That time to completion race, the ability to still be modeling or producing photogrammetry models while you're doing a render on a different project, while you're doing an encode for YouTube and then another encode for a different social platform. Because you've got different, people don't know when you encode for YouTube, it's different than when you encode for somewhere else. You have to do it twice, it's not the same video. And that's all something that goes on in the heads of creators, the casual guy that's looking on the outside going, I'm attracted by the high core count and the massive performance, but I don't know if I can use it. So it's very nice to see that. There's obviously the differences between different OSs driving some conversation there. We're a very close partner with Microsoft. We'll have updates to help take advantage of the unique nature of this processor. In the meantime, the raw performance of the CPU core delivers dominant multi-thread performance in tons of real-world workloads that really matter to people out there buying today. So we're seeing a lot of differences right there. We've got some cool tools in our own software suite like Ryzen Master, lets you disable cores and threads, lets you adjust the frequencies, lets you adjust the memory access mode on the X processors. So you can really tweak and tune this thing far beyond any reasonable level. So because you've got ultimate control. And that's one of the promises we made was ultimate platform with the most PCIe lanes, the most cores and threads, the most multi-threading, and also the most tunability and performance. Led to the creation of my favorite feature, which is Precision Boost Overdrive. So this is
just fun to say,
right? Precision Boost Overdrive, it's full-on metal name. Had to do it, and what it lets you do is increase your multi-thread performance between 10 and 13% with a click of a button, simply and easily, on top of the 10 to 13% you saw by going to a really good cooling solution. So you can see like 20% uplift just by using one of the coolers out there. There's more than a dozen, probably I think about 2 dozen right now that are compatible with the WX series, certified by AMD for the 250 watt TDP, like the Corsair H150. It's a great product for doing that. So that's a great combo right here, buy today. But
it's a good plug. Excellent. It's like you should just do the show. That was great.
But it's tons of performance that's there if you are thermally advantaged. We didn't define this product based on worst case, thinking about some guy, I don't know, maybe in the middle of the desert at 32C ambient inside his house, which is like 110 degrees, where you're just like, why would you ever use a 32 core processor in that environment? But there are people out there, so we have to define our product for that and then bake in all the headroom for people who live in nice air conditioned houses or have high-end cooling and that kind of stuff. So that really led to that creation and pulling all that together with Precision Boost Overdrive and extra performance. And it's really fun because now you can get more multi-threaded performance out of a desktop PC with a click of a button than in most 2P servers in market today.
Right. So there did seem to be, like, especially with the launch of the first Threadripper, I'm glad you brought that back up. The notion of disabling cores or changing those performance metrics was one of those difficult concepts to kind of talk out. Like, why would you want to do that? But there were applications which served that kind of usage. If you'll pardon the comparison to a competitor that we had on the show recently, where we were talking to Intel about Optane, their Optane program. And again, very similar in sort of trying to accomplish feeding data through a system. That these benchmarks that were created around the time of spinning disk drives and 2-core CPUs aren't really reflective of what people are trying to do on a high-end system these days. So you've been finding that the conversation that outlets have been having, we're starting to acknowledge a more lifestyle approach to computing, not just this bar graph is bigger than this bar graph because this one application does this with one core at one time with one thread.
Yeah, for sure. When we first launched the 16 core, there were a few games out there that if you just tried to run them would just crash the desktop instantly. Like,
awesome.
Couldn't run. And then there were a few that just had, they were pseudo multi-threaded. So they'd look at the processor and say, how many threads have I got here? 32? Great. I'm going to create a whole bunch of worker threads and use each one that much. So it looked like it was trying to be multi-threaded, but it was really just taking a couple of threads worth of work and distributing it and just slowing everything down.
In a very inefficient way.
So we were like, okay, so how do we address this? What can we do? We can work with the developers, obviously, natural, yes, check, do that. What's the timeline for that? We've got to wait for their Q&A, their patches, all that kind of stuff. And then you come back to, what can we do now so that the day we launch, we offer a way to improve things? And that's where Ryzen Master came in, and our gamer mode versus our creator mode, because the best tool in the world, while we call this creators are gamers too. Yeah. They love to have a little bit of free time, break it down, and everybody's going to spend 8, 9, 10 hours doing the rendering and then be like, all right, it's time to kick back. Do I really want to change systems, have a whole nother PC for gaming? Right. I just want to game right here. Or, hey, I know this job's going to take 2 hours, but I could do some League or some Dota or some whatever, right? You could jump into PUBG in a little window and just play along, have some fun. Right. That's totally a thing that these guys are going to do. So that's why it gets tested in the media, and that's why we enable different modes so that you can say, okay, here's your level of performance. If you want to raise it up, you can get to here. We've been very fortunate that our performance levels are incredibly high in gaming. It's a beautiful, smooth experience on all of our products. So you're really just chasing the benchmark charts rather than an experience difference. If you look at a lot of the different titles we have, in our own testing, we saw like a 6% difference in gaming performance from competition to us. We were about 6% back. And that seems to be, everyone's like, you can't admit that. You can't say you're slower in gaming. Right. But that's on average a 1.5 millisecond difference in frame time. Who can perceive a millisecond and a half in game while you're enthralled, while you're doing this game? Unless you're staring at the FPS counter instead of your character, you can't tell and you don't know.
Especially because the human eye can't see more than 24 frames per second anyway. So it's totally, she deserved to hit me for that. She probably should have hit me
That was not hard enough of a
I tried. It's his birthday. I'm trying to be nice. It's Juan's birthday, by the way, everybody. Nice. But I feel like we've covered a lot of the big questions about this new CPU. Is there anything else that you feel like people should know about the second-gen Threadripper?
It's the world's fastest desktop processor. Incredibly proud of that title. It's compatible with all our motherboards. There's a ton of good coolers out there. We have a web page that lists all the cooling solutions. I think just about every one of them is on Newegg, so you can buy them today. All the motherboards are ready to go. Overall, I would say, thank you for being a Ryzen fan to all the guys out there buying, because it's really helping us turn around our business, get back into the mainstream gaming, the high-end segment, and it's incredibly pleasing for us to just less than 2 years from when we had zero product that you guys were interested in to now be fully scaled from $100 to $1,800 with the best technology at every price point. Thank you.
Nice. And so just to be clear, $29.90 out now.
Yes.
$29.50
comes out at the end of the month. Okay. The performance results on both are available today. And then in October, we come back with the $29.70 WX, which is our 24-core, 32-thread product at $12.99. So a very fantastic price point right there. That's going to cause a lot of disruption and really shake things up again. And then we have our 12-core 2920X coming in at $649 on that same day. So we'll come back with the specific details closer to the time.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. Well, James, thank you so much for dropping by to talk to us today.
You're welcome.
And I have in my script, good luck with the rest of the launch. I think you don't need...
We'll take it. No, 100%.
It seems like it's going well.
It's going very well.
So, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much.